Sounds like a holy city in here with all this chatter. So it's 10 a.m. I'm Sage Cole, and this is today's second lecture at the Freiburg New Church Assembly. And I will be speaking about another favorite Bible story of mine. I'm guessing maybe some others of us in the room like this one. And this is the story of the Holy City. What I'm going to do for the lecture time is similar to what I did earlier in the week on the prodigal son. I'm going to read chapters 21 and 22, stopping and speaking about the verses as we go along. And I'm going to invite us sort of to hold the story together. We've all read it before, obviously. We've learned about it. We've dwelled in it. And so you all probably have wisdom to bring to the story just as equally as I do. And maybe even some new insights will emerge as we reflect on this story as kind of the goalpost of our spiritual journey, the direction that we're headed as a reality that is, as Swedenborg taught us, coming into being right this instant, individually, collectively, throughout our species, and as a central, organizing principle, perhaps, for what it means for us to be in community as the Church of the New Jerusalem that we are. So I want to invite you to think of this as we go along. Personally, Allison did such a great job bringing the story of the Pool of Bethesda as where do you want healing? So my question for you as we journey through this is where is this holy city coming into being for you as an individual, for us as a church community, and then even and maybe especially for the world at large right now? And how do we find hope and solace in that knowing and then that awareness? And maybe in terms of thinking or making room for something a little bit new to come in, this story was written thousands of years ago as a prophecy of what was to come in the future. And then a few hundred years ago, Emanuel Swedenborg interpreted it in a new way and shared his revelation that yes, this prophecy is real and it is starting to really come into being in the heavens, and that maybe now it really is coming into being in the earth. And I know for myself, this story gives me ballast in the world right now with all the changes that are happening and all of the uncertainty and confusion and fear. And so I hope that it might give us some ballast over this next half hour or so. So we begin with Revelation 21. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. The first heaven and the first earth disappeared, and the sea vanished. Like on Tuesday, I'm going to stop after that one, but I promise I won't do it at every line. But right from the beginning, this is really, really new. And we've been talking about this in a lot of our lectures. What does it mean to change, to let go, and to carry our old life with us? But this revelation of the Holy City is totally new. And that line that the sea has vanished, we learned from Swedenborg that the sea, the ocean, represents our memory knowledges. So even our memory is kind of wiped clean and released. And this is how this begins, this complete reorientation of something new. And I was thinking as Allison was speaking, what would it feel like for us to be completely healed at once, right? What would it feel like to have that? I think it would feel a bit like this. It's an entirely new, clean slate. And definitely when I hold the understanding of the Holy City and the New Jerusalem and the new church, it's an entirely new paradigm, an entirely new chapter in life, where our memories of who we have been, what it means to be a human being, what I'm supposed to be afraid of, what I'm supposed to be dutiful to, all of the stories that kind of shape our identity and our personhood shift. when this holy city comes into being. And I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared and ready like a bride dressed to meet her husband. I heard a loud voice speaking from the throne. Now God's home is with men. He will live with them, and they shall be his people. God himself will be with them, and he will be their God. He will wipe away all tears from their eyes. There will be no more death, no more grief, crying, or pain. The old things have disappeared. This theme of suffering has also come up, and I really like that Allison has reminded us, okay, yes, there is suffering and there is healing. And so we don't suffer in life just for suffering's sake. God is not a punitive God seeking to create a miserable experience, but that we suffer when we're out of alignment with the truth, when we are living by principles that are at odds with reality, at odds with the principles of life that would have us experiencing abundance and healing and life. And so this journey of suffering that we face and that we feel, it has a use, because when we experience that suffering, we begin to recognize, what am I holding on to in my beliefs and my ideas that are at odds with life, that are at odds with God, that are at odds with the truth. And the story of the coming of the holy city, to me, is really about a new, as we'll get to, a new understanding of what it means to be human that is true, that is real, and that wipes away this suffering that is caused by holding on to untruths. And I carry untruths. I'm guessing all of you do. I know that God is love and that I'm beloved, and yet I sometimes, carry ideas that I am not good enough, or that people are, out to get me, or all kinds of things, right? We are shaped, we all carry some untruths. And as a species, we carry a lot of pretty ridiculous untruths, right? That some people are more worthy than others, that, some people deserve to have all of this while others are in want. There's so many untruths that we take as truth. We operate as truth. We get through our days and we live in community from those truths, and yet the New Jerusalem, this new paradigm of life that is being promised and that we are called to receive, is to come into truth and to release those untruths for good on a personal level and then also collectively. So while we still may experience pain in the holy city, we still will be born and we will die, the suffering that we create through carrying these untruths will be wiped away. And not only that, but God will be with us. Just as God walked in the Garden of Eden, now God is with us on an intimate level. We have that direct communication. God's wisdom and love is no longer mediated through the authority of the church, through the authority of the priesthood. It is now with us directly. And that promise that Jesus makes to telling us, the kingdom of heaven is within, in the holy city, we really get that. We honor that, and we feel that closeness with God. Then the one who sits on the throne said, "And now I make all things new." He also said to me, "Write this, because these words are true and can be trusted." And he said, "It is done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To anyone who is thirsty, I will give a free drink of water from the spring of the water of life. Whoever wins the victory will receive this from me. I will be his God, and he will be my son. But the cowards, the traitors, and the perverts, the murderers and the immoral, those who practice magic and those who worship idols, and all liars, the place for them is the lake, burning with fire and sulfur, which is the second death." So there are some that do not get into the city. And when we look at this from the inner sense, I think what's most helpful is to consider these parts of ourselves do not make it into the holy city. We can't enter the holy city if we are in fear. We can't make it into the holy city if we are stuck in any of these practices. And I did a little research into these different qualities. This interpretation is a little different. This translation is a little different than some. But these are all qualities that have to do with selfishness and self-preservation and falsity. And even practicing magic, which is interesting, it connects to pharmacia and drugs, which is interesting. So we, I don't know if we know any magicians, but we probably know some doctors and pharmacists who, create drugs that maybe aren't curative, but are just shifting our perception, helping us to get through. This world is a tough one. This earthly material plane is a tough one, and many of us do things to kind of take the edge off as we are suffering, with the misalignment that occurs on this planet. And all of that, there's no place for that in the Holy City. There's no place for that perception of life that is focused on pleasure as the primary goal of life and escaping suffering. The Holy City is a place that is inviting us to live in integrity, in alignment with the truth. And so there's no need for these perversions anymore. So these parts of ourselves, there's just no room for them in the Holy City. One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls full of the 7 last plagues came to me and said, "Come, and I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb." The Spirit took control of me, and the angel carried me to the top of a very high mountain. He showed me Jerusalem, the holy city, coming down out of heaven from God, shining with the glory of God. The city shone like a precious stone, like a jasper, clear as crystal. So John is seeing the holy city coming down. He is witnessing this descent of the holy city. And I want to just remind us and invite us to reflect on the fact that this holy city is descending. It is moving. It is coming down to earth of its own accord. And in my mind, that means the best way to participate in the holy city is to receive it. We sometimes talk about like building the holy city, but I don't know that. I think that's a perception that's still focusing on kind of our control, our power, our ability. But the descent of the holy city is really about receptivity, receiving its life, opening to its life, making room to receive it, which is a very feminine posture, which I'll just make note of when we think of the holy city and its descent and what it means to make room for it. It's about receptivity, which is a feminine poise. And we didn't read it, but of course, earlier in Revelation, the first appearance of the new church is the woman clothed with the sun, which is also a feminine image. So we're here to receive it. And now we're going to hear sort of the specifications of the city. It had a great high wall with 12 gates and with 12 angels in charge of the gates. On the gates were written the names of the 12 tribes of the people of Israel. There were 3 gates on each side, 3 on the east, 3 on the south, 3 on the north, and 3 on the west. The city's wall was built on 12 stones, on which were written the names of the 12 apostles of the Lamb. So this great high wall is sort of the first thing we see about the holy city. And this wall, this container, is the doctrines of this new understanding of what it means to be a human being. And I think this is really useful in thinking about the regeneration journey that we're all on, that we first see the walls. Boundaries are important, knowing who we are and what we stand for. And this is how this holy city shows up, is having that sense of what is true that then empowers us to live in alignment to that truth. So the walls are very important because they hold that structure of truth, of a new doctrine. And it's in such distinction from the Garden of Eden, right? There's no wall around the Garden of Eden. It's just natural. It's just alive. But through this journey of development that we've all been on, the holy city, the fulfillment of our regeneration includes a boundary, which, if you're ever wondering, like, well, how could we ever become totally loving? And, you really can't if you have no boundaries, right? If you were to become totally loving and open, you would easily, your love would just be sucked up by all those around you if you didn't have a clear sense of who you are and what your boundaries are and what your own needs are, right? And so part of the ability for this holy city to come into being is for humans to have that clear sense of their boundaries, of who we each are, what we need, what we have to offer. And in so having that in place, we can be in relationship with each other. And we're not just, all our resources aren't continually drained. We're giving and receiving in balance. Of course, we also hear in this about the walls and the gates, right? So there's this boundary, but with gates that are always open, with these 12 gates. And 12 is a wholly perfect number. It contains 3 and 4. 3, of course, is sort of the Trinity. It speaks of movement and life, love, wisdom, use. And 4 is kind of boundary and structure. So 12 is just a perfect number. And in Apocalypse Revealed, Swedenborg speaks of 12 as, it's not that there's like only 12 specific ways to get in, but that 12 represents all, and that there's just myriad of ways to get into this city. So many diverse ways to enter into this experience of unity and wholeness. And some people are coming in and they're walking in the opposite direction to what we are, right? Because they're coming in from the other side. So it's interesting to me that Christianity has kind of gone so off the rails with this story being at the end of the book, because it speaks so much of wholeness and diversity and a multiplicity of paths. The angel who spoke to me had a gold measuring stick to measure the city, its gates and its wall. The city was perfectly square as long as it was wide. The angel measured the city with his measuring stick. It was 1,500 miles long and was as wide and as high as it was long. The angel also measured the wall, and it was 216 feet high, according to the standard unit of measure, which he was using. The wall was made of jasper, and the city itself was made of pure gold, as clear as glass. The foundation stones of the city wall were adorned with all kinds of precious stones. The first foundation stone was jasper, the second sapphire, the third agate, the fourth emerald, the fifth onyx, the sixth carnelian, the seventh yellow quartz, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th chalcedony, the 11th turquoise, the 12th amethyst. The 12 gates were 12 pearls. Each gate was made from a single pearl. The street of the city was of pure gold, transparent as glass. This is a beautiful city, right? And again, so it elicits diversity, all of these different jewels. Diversity, but then unity, because each gate has the one pearl, which speaks of the divine humanity, which unites everyone. Swedenborg also writes about justice in relationship to the fact that the city is it's like a cube, and every side is equal, and that this elicits the understanding of justice in the city, where there is equality, everyone is getting what they need, and there's a balance between goodness and truth. I did not see a temple in the city, because its temple is the Lord God, the Almighty, and the Lamb. The city has no need of the sun or the moon to shine on it, because the glory of God shines on it, and the Lamb is its lamp. The peoples of the world will walk by its light, and the kings of the earth will bring their wealth into it. The gates of the city will stand open all day. They will never be closed, because there will be no night there. The greatness and the wealth of the nations will be brought into the city, but nothing that is impure will enter the city, nor anyone who does shameful things or tells lies. Only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of the living will enter the city. So there's no temple in the city, and there's also no night. And of course, since there's no night and the gates are open when it's not during the day, the gates are never closed. So there's this complete openness, and this, again, just like God is with men, there's no need for a temple because God is with each person directly. And if we think about the biblical narrative and the evolution of the temple, right? First, of course, there's no temple in the Garden of Eden, but God's just walking with the people. Then we've got the patriarchs, and they sort of build some little altars every once in a while when they're thanking God. Then in the desert, the Israelites build the tabernacle to carry God around with them. And then later on, the temple is finally built when the kings emerge. Although, of course, and I think Kevin pointed this out, God doesn't really want them to have a king, but they want one, and then it is the king who creates the temple. And that temple, exists through Jesus' time. And what does Jesus say about the temple? Not one stone will be left upon the other, all will be torn down, right? This whole idea of God having a house that stays in one place, that is mediated by a certain portion of the population, is at odds in many ways with the divine story. And when we get to Revelation, that is clear, because in the holy city, there is no temple. God is with all beings directly and fully. And there's no night there. There's no place to hide. There's no obfuscating. Everyone is present, fully transparent, and there in their fullness. Before I move on to chapter 22, in Apocalypse Revealed, when I was getting ready for this, there's an interesting paragraph in here where Swedenborg speaks about love. And I think love is an important theme when we get to the Holy City. Another theme of the biblical story is that we start with love, and yet then the patriarchs go through all this journey of switching it, right? The two-born sons are born. The first one represents love. The second one represents truth. And they switch their birthrights so that truth can be first. There's sort of this ongoing journey of saying, yeah, love is important. It's the most important thing, but we got to let truth lead for a while. That was part of our human evolution, is we needed truth to go first for a time. But when we get to the fulfillment of the holy city, that shifts again. And the streets of gold represent the good of love. The jewels represent the good of love. The balance of the city represents the good of love. And love, as it always was meant to, becomes the leading principle. And this is interesting. This is 908 in Apocalypse Revealed, where Swedenborg speaks about this. And I'm curious what your thoughts will be. He says that all things of heaven and of the church are from the good of love, and the good of love is from the Lord, cannot be seen, and therefore it cannot be known unless it be demonstrated. So he's going to demonstrate it. The reason why it is not known in consequence of its not being seen is because good does not enter into the thought of man like truth. For truth is seen in the thought, because as it is from the light of heaven. But good is only felt, because it is from the heat of heaven. And it rarely happens that anyone, while reflecting upon what he thinks, attends to what he feels, but only to what he sees. I wonder if that's true for you. All right. The reason why it is not known in consequence of its not being seen is because good does not enter into the thought of man like truth. For truth is seen in thought because as it is from the light of heaven, but good is only felt because it is from the heat of heaven. And it rarely happens that anyone, while reflecting upon what he thinks, attends to what he feels, but only to what he sees. I wonder if that's actually true of most people. I mean, I attend to what I feel when I am considering what is true. And it seems to me that a lot of people do more and more. There's so much information out there right now about what is true, right? How do we discern between all of this information coming at us? It feels to me like it's become really vital and important that we attend to how we feel when we are taking in a truth. And I don't know, I just wonder about him. I would love for him to be here so we could chat with him about it. He was obviously a scientist. He was a man. Maybe there weren't a lot of women in this conversation, right? Maybe it's a gender thing. I don't know. But I think it's interesting that he's making this claim that people don't attend to what they feel when they are considering what is true, that they only attend to what they think because they can see it and perceive it. And to me, I think this is sort of one of the possible pointers to the idea that this holy city is emerging more and more, is that it feels to me, and I certainly see these conversations happening a lot in the larger world, that we are becoming more emotionally intelligent, right? A little bit more aware of our feelings, aware of our experience, and that is about being attentive to the good of love. And that maybe we have more capacity to do it now after 300 years. Maybe people did have capacity to do it back then, but he wasn't moving in those circles because of the people that he spoke to and attended to. I wonder. And when I think about this moment and what it means to receive the holy city, to receive this new life, it feels to me that being attentive to how we feel is actually vitally important. And it's part of how we build these boundaries that help us to know what we need and what resources we have to give to others. It's how we find our ballast in life to make choices. And it has a lot to do with what is true. And I think at this point in history, with all that's occurred in the last 300 years, we see that truth can take us all kinds of untrue places, right? If we're not attentive to how we feel and what feels like wellness and goodness. Scientists will tell you they can explore something and they can create things, but they can't tell you what's a good thing to create, right? That science is not a method that helps us to know what is good. That goodness comes from someplace else. And perhaps it comes from this felt experience and this inner knowing of what feels like goodness, this inner heat that is the good of love, that is the primary essence of the divine, and that in the vision of the holy city is a huge part of this new era that we are entering into. And I guess another point about that is if we're shifting out of the era where there is one religious authority, and where people are kind of seeking truth outside of themselves and then trying to live by that, how do we start to seek for truth inside of ourselves, right? How do we listen to God inside of ourselves? It's through the heart, I would suggest, through the heart and the heart's wisdom. All right, Revelation 22. The angel also showed me the river of the water of life, sparkling like crystal, which comes from the throne of God and of the Lamb, and flows down the middle of the city's street. On each side of the river was the tree of life, which bears fruit 12 times a year, once every month, and its leaves are for the healing of the nations. Nothing that is under God's curse will be found in the city. The throne of God and of the Lamb will be in the city, and his servants will worship him. They will see his face, and his name will be written on their foreheads. There shall be no more night, and they will not need lamps or sunlight, because the Lord God will be their light, and they will rule as kings forever and ever. So this water, we heard about this, of course, in the Gospels so often. Jesus has the water of life. Now the water is flowing into the city freely. And the tree of life shows up again. So we have that wholeness and completion of the journey from the Garden of Eden, where life is present in the midst of the city, but held within the bounds of this great wall, and accessible to all those who enter in. A return of the innocence of our dependence on God, our connection to God, our unity with God, but now with wisdom as manifest in the image of the city. Then the angel said to me, "These words are true and can be trusted, and the Lord God will give his spirit to the prophets, sent his angel to show his servants what must happen very soon." "Listen," says Jesus, "I am coming soon. Happy are those who obey the prophetic words in this book. I, John, have heard and seen all these things, and when I finished hearing and seeing them, I fell down at the feet of the angel who had shown me these things to worship him. But he said to me, don't do it. I am a fellow servant of yours and of your brothers and of the prophets and of all those who obey the words in the book. Worship God. And he said to me, do not keep the prophetic words of this book a secret, because the time is near when all this will happen. Whoever is evil must go on doing evil, and whoever is filthy must go on being filthy. Whoever is good must go on doing good, and whoever is holy must go on being holy. I love this paragraph because, one, the angel says, stop worshiping me, which is so, again, is another nod to this is an era when we don't worship each other. We don't make idols. We don't put others above ourselves. We recognize that God is the parent of all of us, and we worship God alone. And then I also like that last line, and you see this a lot in, if you spend time on the internet, if you spend time kind of listening to what people are saying outside of our Swedenborgian tradition about the new heaven and the new earth, there's a real sentiment right now of like people are going to be who they are. And some people are going to just go down a path of materialism and selfishness, and others are going to grow and evolve and learn to be holy. And it's not our job to make anybody different than they are, which again is another nod to church, and faith is not about compelling others, teaching others, changing others. It's about changing ourselves and having our own commitment to God and our own worship of God. And even, I would say, even within ourselves, we can think, there's going to be parts of me that are sort of always going to maybe be annoying to my husband or, to other people. Like there are going to be human parts of me that maybe will just keep on doing something that the higher parts of me would really wish they would change. But I think there's something in the invitation of the Holy City that is about really accepting the life that we are in, accepting the bodies that we are in, the communities that we are in, all that has brought us to this moment. And not that, and allowing God to change it, right? Allowing things to be healed, that it's time for them to heal or it's ready to be healed, but not forcing it or demanding that the healing happen in a certain way, or that I really, because if we're fixated on it has to happen in a certain way, or I need this part of myself to change to be connected to God, that's still kind of our self-will forcing. And it's sort of connected to the disability theology that Allison was bringing up. There may be illnesses that we are just going to have our whole life, right? Helen was always deaf and blind. That didn't change. And there can be parts of our experience that are challenges, and there can be other parts of our experience that are just incredible gifts. And the invitation of the Holy City to me feels like an invitation to allow and embrace the fullness of that, to worship God, and to allow all the different parts of us to be what they are, and for God to change them in God's time. Listen, says Jesus, I am coming soon. I will bring my rewards with me to give to each one according to what he has done. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. Happy are those who wash their robes clean and so have the right to eat the fruit from the tree of life and to go through the gates into the city. But outside the city are the perverts and those who practice magic, the immoral and the murderers, those who worship idols and those who are liars, both in words and deeds. I, Jesus, have sent my angel to announce these things to you in the churches, and I am the descendant from the family of David. I am the bright morning star. The Spirit and the bride say, come. Everyone who hears this must also say, come, come, whoever is thirsty. Accept the water of life as a gift, whoever wants it. So, and again, so we heard about the perverts again, and I would just say, similar to what I was just sharing, that so the filthy parts of us might keep being filthy, the good parts of us will be good, the holy parts of us will be holy, and that we can meet in the Holy City. We don't have to become perfect angelic beings before we can meet in the Holy City, that there's a part of us that already is meeting there. And I often like to just reflect on that when I'm struggling or anything, or alone in my room, or, feeling disconnected from community, that simultaneously, right, I'm in community with angels and with the heavenly community, and that there's a part of me in that Holy City, that it is a place where all of the tribes of the world can meet. It's a place where we can meet even with our enemies, even the smallest part of that person might still be having access to that holy city, even if we have disagreements in all of those other earthly parts of ourselves. So the holy city's entrance into the world is, it's coming, we're receiving it. It's this place of unity and connection that honors and allows for diversity. It's a real thing in terms of something that can exist and does exist in each one of us individually. I certainly see it as something that gives me comfort in this time of challenge in our world, that the Holy City is descending. And I didn't mention this, but lots of things happen before the Holy City descends. I actually just did a podcast last fall with my husband on the book of Revelation, and I realized I hadn't really read it through cover to cover in a while. We read about the Holy City a lot. We don't necessarily read about the dragon and all of the tumult that occurs ahead of the Holy City descent. But there's a lot of it. And when I think about the world, there is a lot of tumult, and yet there's also this promise. And it's not maybe surprising that there's tumult when we're so out of alignment with what is true, when we're living in a world that carries a lot of ideas that are at odds with the love of God and the unity of our human family. So those are my Holy City thoughts, and I would love to hear what emerged for anyone else. She's going to bring up, Dave's going to, that's okay. So the Zoomers can hear you.
Your comment resonated with me about being female and the way we take things in. And my thoughts are definitely very much tied to my emotions. So I think that's not a bad thing. No. That is a good thing. So I appreciated hearing that today. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Gretchen.
I think that, or I had a feeling that this difference between feeling and rationality, the first 25 years being here and listening to lectures were mostly about how to use your rationality to find the holy city. And then something happened and more female ministers came, and suddenly now it's about community and stuff, and it's clearer to me. This is clearer than the rational, we can fix this.
Leah? And then Clark? And then Hugh online. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for a wonderful lecture. And this question of, or the sort of the binary that Swedenborg, it's interesting because he sets up a binary here between, an either or, between love and wisdom. It sounds like he does, the thought and the feeling or emotion. And Swedenborg, unlike other Enlightenment era scholars and theologians and scientists, actually refuses. He's unique, or to a significant degree, because he doesn't draw a divide between history and religion, or history, rationality and spirituality, because he is the person, right, who has mystical experiences and says, I have seen, I have heard, I have felt. These things are real because I had an empirical, like an objective experience of spiritual kind. And so, the good and the true are linked. They're bound together. And that's not what the other scholars in the Enlightenment did. And he is a man, right? And he would say he was definitively male, but he was also, raised by a mom and later a stepmother who were very much bound up in the spiritual world, as was his father, who was a pietist. And also I find that interesting.
Yeah.
Given this passage, wherein he does struggle with this binary. So he goes back and forth a little bit, I think, himself.
Yeah.
Plus, I just read an article yesterday about they have tentatively discovered that is evidence to show that consciousness emerged initially, not from rational thought, but from emotion, because it was the cells that are linked to our unmyelinated cells that link to like the spark in our body.
Beautiful.
So
Thanks,
that's cool.
Leah.
Yeah, weird, huh?
I think, Hugh and then Clark. Hugh, you want to unmute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Thank you, Sage, for the talk. And one of the things that struck me is the idea that we receive the holy city, not that we build it.
Yeah.
And I have to think more about that. And also the place of feeling in the descent of the holy city, rather than concentrating just on the doctrinal part of it. So thank you very much for those thoughts.
You're so welcome. Thank you, Hugh. Clark, did you have something?
Sure. I'm trying to imagine what it's like to come into the holy city, watching people from the other direction and from the side coming in. One way, I'd love to hear some more about this, if you can think of it. I am a creative, and there are people who are rule followers, and I imagine they're coming in from the other side. And I'm trying to imagine who would be coming in from the side, though. That might. My first thought is, I guess, as soon as I hit that pearly gate, I'm going to be able to accept those people coming in from the sides.
Yeah.
But right now, I can't imagine being in the same city with them.
Yeah. It's something I think about a lot. It's like, yeah, you get in, but then what do you do once you're inside? Yeah. Martha.
I've been thinking about this thought, truth, and the feeling, the love. And I can see on a very natural level where we can see truth. And when you love someone deeply, the heat that you feel, I mean, it's an immense heat that you feel when you really love someone. You don't see it. It's such a feeling, and I can see that on a natural level. But I think that as we grow, that the two combined immensely. And I think that when we finally, probably, I don't know, because I'm nowhere near there, but when we enter the holy city, that the reason that they say it's overcome with love is because I think that truth and love are so entwined that we can't see the difference. That the love and the truth it's all one.
Yeah. I'm with you. Beautiful. Yeah. I mean, I know I focus on love and maybe give truth a bad rap, but it's like, if we just were loving, we maybe wouldn't have flown to this moon, like truth has got us somewhere, right? It has created a whole lot of, it has helped us to discover our capacity, which is amazing. And I think many would agree on the planet, we need to be in balance between the truth and the love. Yeah.
Way back at the beginning when you talked about perverts and liars and adulterers and those who practice magic, what came to me is that the Greek word pharmakia, that it's a base word that they use at the point, in biblical times really didn't refer to sleight of hand and medicine. It referred to what we would call today as black magic. It's people who try to gain control and change the future and pull people away from God, and not people who are trying to healing and amuse.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Thank you. Yeah. all of it seems like it's all the qualities that would just really screw up the holy city, right? It's all the things that if you did that would make it no fun to be together. Yeah. And that would be exposed in the light of the Lamb and the light of the Lord. Yeah. Anything else? All right, well, thank you all for listening.